seconds, see if the stream comes up. I think it takes like 30 seconds here. I like your setup there, John. You got the light. I need a light.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, looking good.
Light.
Pink light throws off my white balance, though. I have to set it manually.
True.
It does do that.
Let's see. Come on, streaming gods. Let's go. Well, actually, this is probably going to stream out eventually, so I guess we should just start and we'll assume it's streaming. If not, we'll fix it. All right. Hello, everybody. We're back. Another mostly technical special episode, live streaming this one. Going to go out on podcast tube. We're here with Jack McDade. He wanted to talk Statamic and the future and all kinds of questions he has. So we got some other guests here. We got Caleb Porzio of Livewire and John O'Nolan. I don't never said your name out loud, but I assume that's right. Of Ghost open source publishing platform. So we have an actual expert, which is weird for mostly technical. We like to just play experts, but we have another CMS expert out here. So that'll be cool. And we might have some other special guests popping in along the way. So yeah, let's jump into it. Jack, I don't know, this is kind of your show. You put out a tweet saying, you know, you wanted to get a group of people together to talk about Statamic and questions you have. I don't know, it's kind of like obviously all this WordPress stuff going on. It seemed like, I don't know if that's a factor in it or not, but it seemed like it's in the air. So what are you thinking here? I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah, it's definitely in the air, right? I think we're seeing a huge uptake in people kicking the tires, and it's not that I go after. I don't want to like exploit on negative press and have try to capitalize on people's tough position, right? There's people caught in the middle of all this, and like that's not my intention. But there's a lot of attention being pointed our way. I'm sure at like all the other CMS platforms, and I think it just caused me to spend a lot of time this week thinking, like, what is the responsibility of a CMS owner or the leadership of a CMS, right? And like, obviously, Statamic is a microscopic fraction of a fraction compared to the WordPress ecosystem, but Statamic world affects like thousands, if not tens of thousands of people and their livelihoods to some degree or another. And I'm just want to make sure that like the law of the lid is not hurting us, the product, the community, where I am the bottleneck in, either holding back Statamic from what it could be, what the community needs it to be, what the product could be. And I was hoping to get some smarter people than me to have outside perspective around some of those ideas. And I have, different aspects of the business or the product that we could talk about. But I think like the most important thing for me is like, what is your guys' perspective on like, what is the responsibility of a CMS platform owner or leadership team? Like what factors do we need to be thinking about that we're making sure that we address, or like protecting the community from the leadership in some way, right? I'm very pre-economic at this point, right? There's like not, we're not like at risk of like the tires coming off anytime soon in that department. But like, yeah, that's my hard to verbalize like question, right? Like what is the responsibility as the owner?
Could you give us one thing before we even, so that's a humongous question. And I definitely want the guys to jump into that. One thing before we get too far along here is maybe give us like 2 seconds on both, just what Statamic is, just in case. I think mostly it's going to be people who know Statamic, but just in case anybody doesn't. And also maybe describe your licensing a bit, because like there's a free version and a paid version.
Yes.
And I'm not even sure if the free version, I don't think it's open source, but like just the lay of the land of how that works. And then I think
definitely, yeah, I think maybe
before we even jump into that, let's back up even further. Let's get this official out there.
I know where you're going.
Pronounce it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, do that too.
It is pronounced Statamic because it's the word static and dynamic. So if you take those, phonetical components, it's Statamic. I always say, I don't care how you pronounce it, just want you to use it. So
Yeah.
ultimately,
Nice.
Statamic tends to be a lot more how people pronounce it in Europe for whatever reason. I'm okay with it, but you'll always hear me say Statamic. That would be how we pronounce it here. Thanks, Caleb. I wasn't going to correct Ian, and we're going to see how long we could let it go and see if he could pick it up on the rest of us saying.
Listen, I've said it in my head the other way so long. There's no chance I'm going to be saying it right.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
fine.
will
Don't
attempt
care.
to, but it's probably going to be hard. It's been a Statamic in my head for 10 years.
Yeah.
whatever.
At Rails World, like anytime Statamic is ever talked about, that's the first thing that's talked about. How do you pronounce Statamic?
Right.
At Rails World, there were people running their mouths on Statamic and Statamic and whatever, and it's like you should just
If
the
I
logo
could
should
go
just
back-
be the pronunciate, like
the
Phonetic.
dictionary, like
yeah. Anyway,
yeah. If I
whatever.
could go back in
Statamic.
time, I would have named it something different for sure. I think that's
Ah.
one of my biggest regrets. But we can talk about that if you want at the end of the show.
Yeah, we can get into that later. Well,
if
we
we're
can have a
filling
regret
time.
segment.
Yeah, probably one of the least important things at this point. So yeah, the business model, the licensing model, the way it works and the way we make money that we used to make payroll and keep working on the product. Statamic Core, I think we're calling it Solo, but we're going to call it Core soon. We're kind of doing a little bit of a brand update and stuff. Statamic Core is free. It's open source, but it's not like MIT or GPL. It's a custom license, which John tweeted about this week. Like, you'll be explaining it for the rest of your life if you use anything other than a mainstream license. And it's just always been that way. Like, Statamic started in 2012. This back before, like, literally, like, this launched around the same time as Ghost, within, I don't know, 6 months of each other or something. I remember seeing like, oh man, there's another new CMS coming. Wow, this is this is an idea that we should be doing this. So yeah, Statamic started back in like the pre-Composer days. We were selling like a zip file, right? And we would that's how it started. And so yeah, the core is free and open source in that the GitHub repo is open. We accept pull requests. We encourage people. There's a lot of open source contributions and activity around it. But as far as the licensing terms go, there are, like, you can't fork it and release your own version or anything like that. We're
Right. The source is open, but it's not open source.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
FOSS free open source as
Right.
far as like
The source
maybe
is visible.
Correct. It's visible, and you can fork it and like make your own modifications and use them, but you can't release them, right? And
Yeah.
the terms say you can't bypass our license protection because, like, it's one code base. We don't install like a separate like private Composer repo. If you wanted to,
Right.
you could go in and write overrides and stuff and like hack out all the stuff. Because my position on all of that is like, do enough license protection that keeps like the honest people honest, right? Like, oh yeah, I totally forgot to buy. I meant to buy a license, and like a message pops up. Hackers gonna hack. They're just always gonna be
Yeah.
hacking. So like we don't spend a lot of time like boxing it out. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Statamic Core is free, and a lot of people, like, we don't really track any data on that because it's just Composer installs and you can do whatever you want. Statamic Pro is $275, and that's a perpetual lifetime license. You can run it forever, but we do have an annual renewal if you want to get continued support for that site and the updates for Statamic Pro. So if you stop, if you don't pay for that after a year, you can continue to use whatever the last version came out perpetually forever. And I think my position is, if I were to buy a CMS, I would want to feel like I owned my website. If I'm hosting it myself, if I'm responsible, I don't want to be owned. I don't want to feel like I'm renting my software. I don't want like someone else's license server to make my site go down someday because they didn't pay their AWS bill, right? So like, that's the position we take on everything, is that you own it, and we make additional revenue if you come back to us for those features and updates and support. So that's like the product itself. We do have some other revenue sources. Like, we have a partner network, so you can join that, like a lot of products do. We have like premium enterprise support, and we have a marketplace where you can sell your own add-ons and starter kits and stuff, like a typical app store, and we take a cut 20 or 25% of that. So like, that's how we operate as a business to pay the bills.
Cool. Yeah. So I think that all makes sense. And basically, I mean, it's commercial software. Even though free, it's just commercial software with a free version. It's
correct.
Not, that's like what the licensing is. So
Correct.
Cool. So, okay. So changes in the air. CMS owners are doing maybe wacky things out there and all that stuff. So I don't know. Let's jump into some of that stuff. I guess, John, what do you think? Let's let you hop in. You haven't talked yet. What do you think about the initial phase of this this conversation here?
It's been an interesting week, I think, for anyone in the CMS space in more ways than one. I think the question of responsibility around platform owners is a good one, especially distributed ones where it's not, all hosted in one place, but it can be hosted across many different places because it comes with slightly different considerations. But I guess I'm curious, maybe to go one layer deeper. Jack, what have you been thinking about as your potential options? Because I think your initial tweet sounded like maybe you were thinking about, am I not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like maybe you were thinking, am I not giving Statamic enough room to be as big as it could be? I got like a sense of that vibe. So I'm curious, like what have you been considering?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few moves that I could make that, or people are asking to make, or saying we don't use Statamic because, which are, whether or not I do them, I think they warrant and would be an interesting discussion, right? The most obvious one would be like, is Statamic a WordPress alternative? Like, is it a place for people to go from the WordPress community? And if so, like, how do you make that more friendly? Or even more broadly, like, what if we made Statamic free open source, right? I think that's the big one. That's like the number one, and everything else would kind of like hinge on that. What if Statamic became free, open source, and just like blew off the doors, like everybody can use it and make it MIT or something? And my initial thought is like, well, then we make no money. And therefore that's a problem because I literally, like, besides my design course, which doesn't sell anymore because it's not launch week, I have absolutely zero other sources of income besides interest on my bank account, which is, as you know, huge. Yeah, very small. Love those nickels. So like, if we were to make it free, like, it would be the transitional period would be extremely difficult for me to navigate as a bootstrapped business with, limited. I mean, we have cash reserves, but it's not like enough to make a 3-year runway and like build a hosting, a hosted version cloud platform, or build a foundation and get everybody to, like, there's just so many things. But I'm curious though, like, I still want to think about, would it actually be the right move for the community, or could it, as we're seeing, like in the WordPress world, could it be bad? Could it actually be bad for Statamic if we were to do that? Assuming we figured out the money, like, would it actually make Statamic a worse community to be a part of? That's I think the most interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the playbook, right? Like, I mean, John's here. I think I don't know a ton about Ghost, but it seems like they're kind of on a similar playbook of like, there's the commercial hosting sort of is the revenue side, and the free free open source software is, creates the distribution and the awareness in the world that this product exists and it's good, and some percentage of those people don't want to deal with hosting, and then they pay for hosting, and that's what keeps the flywheel going. And even though I'm sure even in Ghost 2, it's like 90 whatever percent, I'm sure, just using it the free version and hosting it themselves and all that stuff. It is interesting. I mean, John should probably speak to this, or Caleb's an open source guy too, so his take, he's got his own stuff going on in this sort of realm also. But it's hard because obviously you have to have some baseline revenue. Probably you just can't do it tomorrow. So it's like you have to do some kind of hosting thing. You are opening up risk, right? Like, part of what WordPress is going through is like, presumably WP Engine is maybe outperforming them, or there's at least a lot of competitive pressure. And so once you open source it, like, I could just start up Statamic Hosting Inc. and maybe outdo you and your hosting platform. So there is risks there, at least in the beginning. Presumably you'd want to give yourself a head start and that kind of thing. So
Maybe a good trademark agreement.
yeah, I guess get a proper trademark agreement. Yeah, no. Well, maybe a little. How about before we go all the way to that, John? What's the history of Ghost? Like, how did you get here? And that might be an interesting. I don't know if Jack already knows that, but I don't know it, and I'm sure a lot of people.
I do. I followed it closely because he had a way better way to launch than I did, and he nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah.
The thing we did, which is kind of relevant to the events of the last few weeks, is I was frustrated with the confusion that existed between kind of WordPress.com and Automatic, which didn't really run real WordPress. It was WordPress multi-user, so you couldn't really use themes or plugins, very limited. And then meanwhile, you had WP Engine that was making tons of money. Even in like 2012, it was doing great. Everyone wanted it. But none of that money was going to WordPress because it was a different company, which didn't make sense to me. So my idea was, what if you had, the product of WordPress.org, but you had the business model of WP Engine, but you just did those two things in one company, and have that company be not for profit and open source, and for the good of journalism, good of publishing, which I care about a lot. And I hadn't really seen that done before. I'm still not sure if anyone else has done it exactly like we have before. But it was kind of a punt. It was like, I wonder if this could work. Right. And it did. We're at 7 million a year annual recurring revenue now. Wow. 11 years later. So that part worked out. And the piece of that business model that's interesting is, regardless of whether your CMS is open or closed, if it's going to be installed somewhere, someone's got to pay for hosting. Like, you can't run it without the hosting. If you want to have a website with an open platform, you are paying someone to make it work. So the question is, like, who would you rather than pay? Would you rather than pay a third-party company, or potentially pay you? And I think that's kind of an interesting thread to pull on. I also think you have a big advantage, Jack. Like, the biggest apprehension people have with open source is if their code base has been closed for a long time. It's like, if we open this up, security issues, people can see the source, and they're going to see all our hacky shortcuts we took, and there's maybe some shame about the code. Like, you already have none of that. So that's right. That's a giant...
That tech debt we eliminated like 6 years ago. Yeah, we did have a closed repo for like 5 years, which also hurt us because like we didn't have as much visibility and contribution from people fixing paper cuts and all that.
The other advantage I think you have right now is it's PHP, right? Like, there's not going to be a lot of developers switching from WordPress to Ghost because fundamentally we're a different tech stack. It's just not transferable skills.
Two main reasons I thought you'd be great to chat, because it doesn't feel hyper competitive between us, and because you do have that open source, free and host. Like, you took the approach. I'm wondering, like, could or should we switch to, and just was curious, like, Jack, don't do it. You're doing great.
I think personally, I think it could be huge. I think the question of how do you not wipe out your income is probably the most important one. And you need to have a good answer to that. Hosting is one option. There's also the kind of open core model. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's like GitLab, right? Where the core application is open source, but to use the kind of extensions, add-ons, things that people really do care about and are willing to pay for, particularly the bigger customers. Those are licensed, and you pay for those. That can be very effective as well.
Which is kind of what we're doing now, but probably not under like an official label or open core. Is that like an actual license model, sort of? Model?
If you look up that term, you'll find some good writing about it. There's a fund that talks about it all the time, whose name I can't remember.
I'll look into it.
I'll look it up.
Well, what's interesting about Statamic? That I think is kind of cool. Cool is if we look at like a product like Ghost, another place where I don't think you guys are directly competitive is like Ghost. As I was talking about with John on Twitter the other day, is more like publishing, blogging, like pretty focused on that. Like, you can build pages, but it's not like really for building a whole website, generic like a B2B SaaS app website or whatever. And Statamic to me is more build a full-on website with random pages all over the place, and it might have a blog, but it also has 300 just one-off pages and different styles and whatever you want to do there, right? And so, and then if you think about WordPress and that, like WordPress is really more like Ghost, but then it's been fully hacked, right? It's been just like abused to the 10th degree to like, yeah, you could build your whole website in this thing, and it's built this whole ecosystem of plugins and things that sort of make it so you can pull in a bunch of random stuff and sort of make it work. So in terms of like
Max
taking
Battle
on
Wagon.
right. Yeah. So it's sort of interesting. I don't know how many like real full CM. I mean, there's tons of real CMSs that are open source, but at the same time, like, it is a little different take than WordPress for sure. Even though that's WordPress's zone and where all the money is at is like on their end, right? Is people building huge websites with it, and it's like maybe there's some opportunity in there to have an open source PHP, especially competitor, especially one that has all the infrastructure already. Like you have so much infrastructure, you have plugin store, you have a community, like you have all these things, which obviously somebody just starting tomorrow would have none of that and have to build all that and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so
building a two-headed market takes a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have revenue from that, like that's a revenue source that would presumably expand quite a bit, right? So even in the transitionary phase, presumably you'd have more sales on the App Store. That would be at least some compensation there as well.
Yeah, there's a version where that becomes the primary revenue source, right? If there was enough add-ons and kits and stuff running through that, I absolutely, like if someone was able to buy a site, or not even have to buy the site, you launch the site and you buy $100 kit and you buy a $100 e-commerce add-on, $50 form, and whatever, like all these things, that would add up to a lot more than the $275 we make now potentially. But again, that's down the road. It is probably the smallest part of our revenue right now, just because a lot of the add-ons and stuff are free because people are like, they're building stuff and they like extract a feature and release it for like, hey, this would be great. Other people could use this. And there's, I forget how many, 3 or 4, maybe 500 add-ons right now. But yeah, there's people who don't want to use add-ons because they don't want to use anything that's not core, which is like another whole problem. Like I feel like doesn't really exist in the Laravel world. Like in Laravel, like, give me some packages, man. Give me that latest like Spassy package, or what's Caleb up to, or what's, like just add all the packages like in Statamic. And I don't know if that says something about the quality of the add-ons. I don't think so, because there's a lot of really talented developers releasing stuff. I think there's an inherent trust issue inside the CMS type of product, because you're not the developer wiring it up. You don't get in there and wire up a Spassy package. It like does its thing. And if you can't do it, you're like kind of, you're forking an add-on and symlinking the repo, and it becomes like a process.
There's a different social contract or something there, and actual contract between like a commercial application to, it's like, I paid you for this. It should do the things I want it to do without jumping through hoops. Whereas like it's sort of a different social contract of like, this is a free thing, and to make it do what I want it to do, I got to jump through some extra hoops, So I do think that is a little bit different there too.
Yeah. And you see that play out very differently, right? Where like in Laravel's free and people happily pay for Laracast, and we do know they're separate companies. But Statamic was paid, and one of the mistakes I made along the way is like, I don't know, we have to make payroll, we got to do something. So I launched a course like 9 years ago and sold it like advanced Statamic, and people are like, what the hell, man? Like, first you charge me for this CMS, then you charge me to learn how to use your CMS. I'm like, good point. That was a desperation move.
Documentation. Yeah. Right.
And this should all be part of the right. And so like you learn these things along the way when you're so like tunnel vision on the product and like just trying to make enough money so you can keep working on the product like we were for years. You pick up.
But then you get to the other side of that, right? With like Microsoft and Oracle and all these, right? They're charging people tons of money to become certified Oracle, whatever, right? And it's like a whole separate, these are all things that either are in the docs or could be in the docs. And it's like, no, you're going to pay us $5,000 a user to become a certified Oracle partner specialist.
Yeah. Like
right?
those sad stories about IBM this week. I don't know if you saw those like tweet stream of developers saying like how IBM's dying and like all their just charging people for their knowledge for the legacy systems that they're keeping people anyway. Yeah. Right. But that tends to happen for those like giant vendor lock-in situations where you're like, this super sucks, but like, what am I going to do? Like,
Right.
this is SAP,
That-
this is Oracle. Like, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Are you
I mean,
leaning
lock
in a,
in.
are you
ahead.
leaning in a particular direction for
Am-
business model? If you did go open source, if this was something you were going to explore, do you have a sense of like, I want hosting feels like something that's achievable, or
I would say when I'm thinking about myself, when I'm thinking about what I want to do and what I want to spend my time working on and the company that I want to run, it's not a hosting company.
Mhm.
I'm not a DevOps guy. Like, I can run apt-get install and like I can do the basics, but like we use Laravel Forge for everything. Like we're not infrastructure people.
Mm.
And I don't feel like I have the capacity to build a separate company, essentially, right? It's a separate team. It's a totally separate product, totally separate company, at the same time as continuing to maintain this one to
Oh, I know
the level that
feeling.
we've done it, right? I mean, you might still feel that. And in an ideal world, you pay for the product, you get the product, right? If the product's free, then you're the product, right? People are always quoting that, or they're trying to convince you to buy this other thing, but all you wanted the first thing, right? Like, I want to host it myself. I just want to use the product. So like in an ideal world, what we're doing would work. Like what we're doing now would be the answer. And our growth is good. We're like between 20 and 30% year over year, but we're still like so tiny. And the people that use it love it so much. And I feel like I'm hearing the same things over and over again. Like, oh man, Statamic looks awesome, but like it's freaking expensive, which from WordPress, if you never paid for an add-on, I guess it's true. And then in the same time, I get other people saying like, Statamic is so stupid cheap. You should charge 25,000 and go enterprise with it because of, some of the things it can do, right? So we've got this weird
You're in the
like
middle.
Hydra product
Yeah.
where we could lean heavy, and this is another one of the things I talk about. We could lean heavy into enterprise, and we have like TV2 Regionair, which is a huge company in Denmark that is like the New York Times of Denmark, and like Der Spiegel from Germany uses it. Like runs these massive sites, which you can do because we have like this interchangeable data model thing where you can like swap out flat files for database, for Oracle, for Firebase, or whatever you want, and like store your data wherever you want and then scale horizontally, which is really cool. But like if we go and push towards enterprise and try to get more of those big customers, everyone who's ever used Statamic up until now, with the exception of like a handful of like big customers, would kind of it would hurt them, because like now it would be working on features that they'd never need, or performance tuning for scenarios they'll never run into. And I don't want to alienate our current customer base because they're fantastic and I love them. And so I feel like these moves, like free open source would be great to get lots of new people in, or enterprise would be great to get more money or get some of these bigger profile customers. So we, have options in that way. But like, all of that seems to take away from what we already do and love. And it's like
It does seem like, though, if you were to go open source, I think to not do hosting feels wrong. Like, I feel like you'd have to have hosting because, like, first of all, it's just such an obvious thing that's going to generate the most money, right? But also, I just think it's going to be weird. Like, other people might build huge businesses on Statamic, and then like you're not in any of that, or in some small. I mean, I guess there's probably like creative models where trademark licensing and other things maybe let somebody else run the hosting companies, and you just get a cut for the trademark use or something. And that's like what WordPress is trying to backdoor do now, right? Like 20 years later, you
Right,
could do through the
yes.
front door and been like, hey, anybody can host it with and use our name as much as they want. We want 5% of the revenue. Let 1 million hosts prosper and see who wins, whatever. You don't care about that part. You're just going to get a piece for their use of the trademark, which I think would actually be kind of a cool model. I don't know if it's big enough to like get enough people to be like, we're going to build hosting platforms.
Right.
I don't know. Like that may or may not happen. That's also where if you do your own, you're kind of kicking that off. I don't know if John,
Like,
did
the
you guys
product
raise
might
money
be-
or no?
No, we did
Or you
a
bootstrapped?
We did a Kickstarter,
Kickstarter?
which was
Cool.
pre-sales basically. So
Right.
we managed to raise $350,000 to kind of get things off the ground, and
Okay.
then had to simultaneously build the product and the hosting platform
Right.
and the like
Yeah.
billing system.
Oh, that was before
Yeah.
the product even
together.
existed. Okay, so you didn't even have
Yeah.
really the product. Okay, all right, wow. Okay,
And he
Yeah.
gave you a runway without giving away any ownership, which I thought was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. It took me literally 5 years to cumulatively get to $350,000,
right.
like the first 5 years. So like our like
Interesting.
something started at the same time, but we didn't really even become a real like product company for like 5 to 7 years because we had no
Yeah.
money. Yeah.
I mean, I will say hosting is like, I mean, when I started HelpSpot, like I felt the same way as you, Jack. I'm like, I don't want to be a host. I don't know anything about servers. And this is like 2005. So also there wasn't like AWS. There wasn't all the nice infrastructure. It was
Kubernetes
like,
and all the tooling stuff.
yeah, I was going to have to buy servers and rack them and be in there managing stuff. So it's not quite the same thing. But at the same time, ultimately, like, you know, at the end of the day, we're not Zendesk. And part of the reason we're not Zendesk, even though we were before Zendesk, is because it wasn't hosted. And so we were limited to the people who wanted to self-host the help desk, which at the time was more than now, but it's still, you know, obviously the hosted version is just convenient and people like buying business software that's hosted for them. So, you know, and eventually we did do a hosting platform and whatever later. So I do think you need the hosting answer probably just for growth. I think you need that answer regardless, whether it's you, whether it's somebody else, whether you partner with somebody who wants to do it and you work out a deal, like even if you don't want to do it. Like I do feel like you need a hosting, some kind of semi-official hosting would be really huge.
Do you have any
regardless
hosting
of if you open
partners?
source or not?
No, we were trying to get something going with DigitalOcean for a long time. And every time we'd get halfway through discussions, they'd like give me a new account rep and like another account person. And like, it was like, we got right to
I'm
like
familiar
launching.
with that game.
Right. Yeah. We were like ready to launch the one-click installer on DigitalOcean. And then like they stopped answering the emails. And then it was like, oh yeah, you know, Pratesh is your new account manager or something. And you have to start back over the beginning. Like, okay, so like what's Statamic again? Like, why does anybody care about this? And we're like,
Yeah.
I'm out. Like, I don't care. Like I'll put a referral code and we have all the unlimited like hosting credits we want for ourselves now. And that's, I don't know, it's better than nothing. Yeah, no hosting partners at all at the moment. We have some hosting companies that sponsor things, like they'll sponsor Flat Camp, which is like our conference, but it's nothing like no rev share of any kind. No.
I mean, I would
Caleb,
start, I would probably start there.
Caleb, what's your 2 cents? You've been quiet. Give us some Caleb
I'm quiet.
notes on Statamic.
I think I'm the least qualified person here, so I'm letting the people who've actually done this talk. But I thought the same thing, Ian. It's like I feel like I don't know. I feel like the play is the hosting play. If it's going to be free and open source, which I think would be huge, then you have to make money, and that's the hosting play. But like I wouldn't open source it before having the hosting play ready. So, and then if you don't want to become like a hosting company, my thoughts go to like maybe there's some like deal with Laravel Cloud or some like who else can do the hosting in a way that is either white label or like some sort of license agreement or partnership where you're making like a good enough amount of money that it like actually works and isn't just like some kickbacky thing. I feel like that's the only way. I feel like like that's kind of the bottle. Also themes. I know you have some template. You have the podcast template or whatever, but that's like a huge WordPress thing. Like there's entire businesses based on WordPress themes, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's another like revenue stream that could be part of the plan that you could still make money with the open source. But I don't know. If I was just like painting on a blank canvas, I'd be like, Jack, go dark for a year and build up this thing that is like Statamic. Would it be 4, 5, whatever?
6 would be next
Statamic
year.
6, Statamic Next, and you come out. There's Statamic Cloud. There's themes, everything. All the core is free and open source. You're like out to market. You have all the trademark stuff figured out, so you don't end up like WordPress. And you do like some strategic shifts, like if you want to be more Laravel-y to like ride that wave, or less Laravel-y to like differentiate your product so you don't end up under their Laravel Cloud umbrella thing. But like figure that stuff out. Go SQLite first and foremost, like, you know, double down on that because everybody will love that. And I feel like that's the big play. I don't know. I'm just dreaming, but like for Statamic to go poof, I feel like that's what
You can
That's
have those
what I'm
middle
thinking.
ground like that, where like it's like a Laravel cloud thing would be more about like a deployment thing. Like you were, it sounds like maybe you were
Right.
trying to do a digital ocean, but it's still not the same thing as managed, like a managed version, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like if there's a problem
Correct.
with the update later in a year, right? That's still on the customer. Like the Laravel
Right.
cloud people are not going to go in there and fix their Statamic instance when there's a problem or whatever, you know? So like, yeah. I mean, there's also full on, I feel like there are just some like all this bigger stuff aside, that's obviously much bigger projects. I think you need to go a little more like evil capitalist here. And like, it seems like,
Do you know,
like
Lee?
if you, I don't know, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I just did a quick search for like Statamic WordPress importer or whatever. And it seems like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a thing on the store, but it hasn't been updated in a while. It's not yours. Like, I feel like that
Yeah.
should just be baked in. Like, there's
Yeah.
a baked in WordPress importer, and it's super awesome. It does everything, maps everything correctly for you. You know, it's obviously whatever. There's a wizard to help you map as much as possible. Of course, there's always going to be some cleanup, but it does a lot of the heavy lifting, and then really lean into like, hey, get off of WordPress. It's all a dumpster fire. Come over here for $200 and everything's going to be magical and awesome, and it's great.
Yeah.
So I do think there is some opportunity there. Again, you're gonna have a little bit of headwinds with the like hosting situation, probably, because obviously it's gonna be hard to get people to move off a hosted WordPress to a non-hosted solution, probably. But even so, there's obviously
Yeah.
millions and millions of non-hosted WordPresses out there in terms of self-hosted WordPresses. So it's still a huge market. If you can start to get some of those probably bigger customers, like you said, you have bigger customers. The other thing with the hosting that's nice is it does let you get more of that revenue, right? Like, so you have these huge customers and they pay you the same amount as the small customers, which is not an ideal like business model. You know, it's like
Yeah.
if you have a site doing 50 million views a month, like they should be paying you a lot more than the site that does 10. But right now, I don't think that's the case, right? It's just like you own it and do whatever you want. I
Yeah,
believe,
unless you
right?
have a like an enterprise support plan with us, and
Right.
that's more time and access rather than like
Right.
a
That's still
different
got
fee.
a
It's not
ceiling
usage-based.
to it. Like it's not an unlimited ceiling there. If you right, I assume that's like some plan that they buy for whatever a month
Yeah,
or
it's like
whatever it is.
$1,000 a month or
Right.
$2,000 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah. So, you know,
Yeah.
whereas if you have the hosting, it's like, oh, you run a giant, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You're a Fortune 500 company, want to run your website on this, then it's going to cost you more. Like that's the deal. And there's
Yeah.
tiers and there's like, you know, failover and all these things, yeah, enterprise-y features. If you want to go that route with it. But I don't know. Seems like there's some opportunity there to like really grow the revenue a lot if you can get into that space a bit more.
I think what you have right now is you're capturing a very large percentage of a relatively small market. So at the moment, all you've got is the Statamic market, but you capture almost all of the revenue that's within it, or at least a solid chunk. If you go open source, your market size goes up dramatically, but your ability to capture all of it goes down. So I think the things to weigh up is, do we think that open source Statamic's market share would be so large that even capturing a much smaller percentage of it would be equal or the same as your current revenue? I think the answer to that is variable, but potentially yes. Hosting is like a great recurring revenue model. It is not the easiest thing to do, although it's certainly easier to do in PHP than Node, I can tell you that. But there are, to Caleb's point, themes can be incredibly lucrative. We have many theme developers who do hundreds of thousands of dollars a year revenue in Ghost themes. Adam pretty much only sells themes. That's all he does these days. And
so we got Adam Wathen. Adam Wathen's joined us. Hi, Adam.
I have no context. I don't know what's been discussed. I don't know how I could possibly add any value at this point, but I'll let you guys just keep going. And if there's anything I can do, let me know.
Yeah. Do we try to catch them up real quick? I mean, now we're talking about...
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're just talking business models for Statamic, and if you should do a cloud, basically, and kind of I've started touching on a little bit on sort of WordPress and competing, should we be attacking that market and their troubles a little bit? And if you do so, how do you go about that? But yeah, just trying to grow it and expand beyond the current sort of place it's in, which is, working and growing, but could probably be going faster and bigger. And are there other opportunities if it was either open source or the other direction, which we haven't discussed as much, of like go full on enterprisey and things like that. Say more commercial, even more commercial, enterprise focus, or do you go open source it and things like that?
Yeah.
Sounds
Do you
good.
want to go
Or
the
also
enterprise route?
both.
I can't see that.
Or both?
Do I
yes.
want to?
Yeah, can you just keep it closed source and do the hosting? Like that would hedge your risk, like de-risk it entirely, and then you could decide later.
Also true.
Yeah, I could do that. I think the thing about hosting would be with it closed source as it is now, right? As an open commercial product, our pie is always going to be smaller. Like the number one thing that people come up against us is like, oh man, Statamic looks really cool. Oh, I just saw the pricing page. Like I'm not going to spend, $300 for a CMS when there's so many good free ones out there. And which is fair because the customer has the right to choose. There are free CMSs available. So like you can absolutely go use one. And so that I think what happens is sometimes people will actually try it and you're like, oh, dude, this is actually really cool. This like has a lot of unique ideas and like ways of building site that's like way more efficient. So if you fall in love, if you get the Statamic light bulb, people stick around. Like the Statamic community is awesome. They love it. Like really kind-hearted and like generous with each other. And it's great. But like it takes a bit to get someone into the fold because there's so many obstacles they run into. Okay, if you're coming from WordPress, right? You're used to clicking like one-click install, and you click a theme, and you click your add-ons, and you got a something, right? You got a something there. It might not be great, but it's a something, and it's running on a server, right? With Statamic, like right now, you got to use the command line to install it, right? We're using Composer. You don't have to, like if you pick a starter kit, it comes with your assets pre-compiled. But if you make changes, like we're using Tailwind for everything. So you got to run, npm install, npm run dev and whatever. And like to scan your CSS classes and all that, which is great. But each one of those things are like little friction points for a WordPress developer or a WordPress user to come over. And then they're like, well, now how do I deploy it? Like, okay, well, you got to connect it to, like get your Git repo. Oh, well, now I got to use Git. Right. So like that story, while we could improve it, does it even make sense for us to really target WordPress, like the broad WordPress market? Because the flow is so like the end product might be similar and or better. Like, oh, wow, I love how the control panel works. It's like much more intuitive. It's got features that I didn't have in WordPress. It's so much simpler. I don't have the plugin problem, all that stuff. But the transition from what you had before to getting there for that type of user is like a lot of like learning curve. And I see that on Twitter all the time.
When it's done, when it's set up and it's running, do you think the average WordPress user would be as comfortable?
More comfortable almost
More
every
comfortable.
time. But the people who actually get all the way through that and get their site launched, like our number of like customer testimonials are like, oh my gosh, it's so much easier in WordPress. It's so much more intuitive. It's faster. It's cleaner. I don't have like 900 pop-ups every time I log in. I have to dismiss for like plugins that are out of date and all that kind of thing, right?
Who would you say is your perfect Statamic user right now? Like your ideal customer profile?
Ideal customer profile, in the way our business model is right now, would be agencies or freelancers who build lots of sites, who more or less manage them for their customers, or like manage the code side, right? And let their, but like they log in and, manage the site. And if they need, we're going to launch, some new marketing campaign. Can you build us some landing pages? And then they'll go in and make, whatever. So it's like an ongoing maintenance side. Like those agencies are our bread and butter, like for sure. Cause they're buying 20, 30, 50 or more licenses a year versus the one Spiegel or TV2 who still buys the same $275 license. And we have support agreements with them, which are different, but like they're both using literally the same exact product. And so
I did, I was just gonna say, I did use it recently. I was playing around with it because I'd never played around with it before a few months back there. And like, I was surprised that it is more of like, it's more developer-y than I thought. Like you're kind of getting an empty shell that's like super powerful, but then you have to sort of figure out like, like the repeaters and the field types and how do I build it out, and like kind of experiment with the best way to do it for the site you're trying to build. And there's not really like you have to like, you can get the starter kit, but that's a separate process. Like you said, it's not like, you don't log in and it's like, oh, there's like a shell of a website and I'm publishing something exactly. It's like you kind of have to get in there. There's a lot of fields. So it's like, you need a developer. Like the end users, I could definitely see why they like it better than WordPress for sure. But somebody has thought it through and built it out for them to then get to that place where it's, super easy for the end user. So
it's usually like everybody's second site is like, oh man, I love this. The second site they build, right? The first one is like, Adam's tried to build a Statamic site and he's like, too much friction, I'm out. And then we've never talked about it again. And so like that, that happens just because it's opinionated. And if you get in the flow of the opinions, you're like, oh, I see why a lot of this stuff this is really great. But that's like whether it's education, whether it's like smoothing out products or the product flow or the UX, or maybe it's more starter kits that just come, right out the box with like all of it wired up so you can see it.
Like I could have imagined definitely like the UX when you first get into it of being more like, even put aside like that's composer and stuff. I feel like that's not that bad, right? Like you can kind of get through that part of it, but then it's like, like some kind of wizard even at the beginning. That's like, are you building a website or to just like blog publishing? Okay, website. All right, like we're gonna install like a starter kit that is, websitey. Like it's got an about page thing, it's got some fields set up, and it's like sort of reasonable. And then you can get going with it. So you're not so just like into the docs from the first second. Like, what even is this stuff? Where's page? Like, there's no pages. There's collections. What are collections? And like, getting into all that sort of terminology stuff and all that. Like, And like for a cloud version, I think you'd have to do that for like a hosted version.
And you have to have a GUI that did it, right? You'd have to be able to like see the picture of the theme or click like install and launch this, right? And that, that would be how we would do it if we build that. But we do have when you install Statamic now, it says, would you like to use a starter kit? And, we use Laravel prompts and you can like browse them all by name. Or if you go to the marketplace, you can like copy and paste the install script that will start up your new Statamic site with that kit. We don't have a lot of great kits. And I think I wasn't planning on talking about mostly just if it's a blind spot. Like, is there a version where like a move that we make where Statamic is free and open source, we don't use hosting, but we have the freaking most killer badass starter kits that are just like look good and are built well. And we kind of take like what Adam's doing and has done, I'd say pretty well at, and make money at essentially selling that's pre-wired to the CMS. That's interesting. That is now focusing on another thing though, rather than the core product. And then the transitional period from here to there is like, then I'm back in there's like what I've been spinning out around. It's like, can someone tell me like, what's the best idea I could make given like the current situation? How do I help our community grow? Because I feel a responsibility. There's so many people in it, developers and, partners looking for work and projects. And like, because it's small and there's like this resistance, there's like only so many people come in and the pie is small.
I'm
Do
curious.
you guys sell any starter kits now?
Because Adam's newer in here, I'll answer Adam's question. Yes, we do. There's like 6 or 7 starter kits that are paid, maybe 10.
Not by you though.
We have one that's paid.
One paid one. Okay.
One paid one, and we wanted to have a paid one. Like, I'd like to have more. I mean, I can design and build stuff. That's like what I do. But is that what I should be doing? So we have one. I wanted to have a kit that set a price point for an expectation. People were launching like $5 starter kits. I'm like, this is not like how you do this.
Yeah.
Like, so I wanted to put something more premium together, but that was simple. So we have a podcaster starter kit that's like $65 or $75. It has, it uses a live wire and your player persists and all that stuff. So there's like $135 kit that has like a page builder thing that people love. And there's a few, but yeah, it hasn't been given like the love that concept that like could have, and like hire people to design stuff, like get either big designers to have, here's like not that Steve Shoger would do it, but like, here's a Dan Petty or a Raji design. And like here, I don't know, there's there's room for that. I just haven't,
Yeah.
I haven't said like with the eye of Sauron, if I can only focus on like one thing really well at one time, is that what I work on right now?
Yeah. I guess just like I kind of agree with Caleb's point, which is that both this and the hosting seem like separate decisions from the open source thing, you know?
Correct.
And even
Yeah.
though both of them might be more successful if it's open source, it still feels like a separate decision. It doesn't feel like you have to do them at the same
Agreed.
time, you know? Like
Yep.
you could build the hosting thing, serve the needs of like the current community. If it feels like, man, this hosting thing, this is like working well, margins are good, retention is good. Let's see what happens if we just like make Statamic open source, you know, and bet all on this, and same with the starter kits. But at the end of the day, you have that problem I think that you kind of alluded to, which is, well, now my business is those things and not like making Statamic better, which is that's a challenging thing. I think you kind of have to decide there in general. Do you want to get paid to make Statamic better, or do you want to try to have enough margin doing something else that there's resources to continue making Statamic better, which is basically our business, which it works, but it's hard to not it's hard to justify spending time on the open source stuff all the time. And
so like Adam, Caleb, and John, you all have open source products and closed source products that are tangential but not the same, right? You've got Livewire and I got Flux, Caleb, right? You've got an education. Adam, you've got Tailwind and Tailwind UI and a book that's tangential. And John, you've got the hosted version and the free version. Like what are some mistakes like or regrets, or like is there any advice you could give me like from your perspective, like, dude, I wish I did that different?
I think you'd be surprised at the things people will pay for that you imagine they won't. That's something I've learned over the years, is like I had a lot of self-imposed we can't charge for this because then people will kick up a fuss. Like we have a limit on the number of admin users you can have in Ghost, which is gated by plan, right? But if you're self-hosting, there's no such limit. But we had to figure out how to separate pricing somehow. And for a long time, we avoided putting like plan limits in arbitrary places because it just felt too arbitrary and we thought we'd get, called out for it. And every now and then someone gets mad for sure. But the reality is if you don't put them around features, then you put them around traffic. And no one likes being charged for traffic, even when they don't have any traffic, because everyone thinks they're going to go viral tomorrow and everyone lives with that story in their head. And so they imagine their bill's going to be crazy. Whereas staff users much more easy to reason about. I have 2 people this month, I have 2 people next month, I'm probably going to have 2 people next year. So I think you can experiment probably more than you imagine you can. And the story you tell yourself about what will and won't work, like your intuition's probably right sometimes, but probably not all the time. And there's probably room for more experimentation. I think that's something that took me a while to learn. But just a thought off the back of the last kind of couple of backs and forths here. Are people actively asking you to make Statamic open source? Like, is that something you're hearing often? Like, Jack, I love this. I just wish it was specifically with an open source license. Because I've heard you say expensive, but I haven't heard you say open source
I would,
as like an objection.
people do ask that. They aren't people I know. It's people on Twitter, especially over the last week. But I hear it every now and then. It's not people from inside the community. Like everyone who's already building Statamic sites are like, yeah, this model works for us because we learned it. Our clients are cool with it.
Yeah,
it works, right? However, I do feel I have a responsibility to those people in our partner network to grow the overall ecosystem so that there's more work to go around, right? There's more Statamic projects. And one of the things that they run into with their clients is, I've never heard of Statamic, or I can't pronounce it. Like, why would I use it? I can find a WordPress developer anywhere. And that, of course, that's true. The quality, and there are millions of phenomenal WordPress developers out there, but because the pie is so big, there's also millions of absolutely terrible WordPress developers or people who claim to be one that aren't one. We don't have as much of that because everything's smaller. There's still a little bit of that. So yeah, like how I want to take care of everybody involved, the partners, the customers, people who are using it, the staff, like our team here at Statamic, like we could really use another 1 or 2 people on the team, like desperately, but like we can't. we don't have the cash flow for it. So like,
it'd be
Does
interesting
everyone-
for you. I think it'd be interesting for you to get some data. I would go out to the partners, especially like all the partners you have or different Statamic shops, agencies, and things,
yeah,
and ask them like, do you hate hosting it? Like, do you hate dealing with the hosting yourself? Like, I think that would be interesting. Like, are they all like, man, we love Statamic, but it's not a big deal. I'm sure, obviously, if they hated it, they would use something else, right? But like,
sure.
you know, are they bothered by that? Like, oh, once in a while servers go down and we have to deal with it, or there's whatever hiccup, or we have to deal with the composer updates when stuff changes, whatever the things are. Because that might give you then more information about if it's worth building. If everybody's like, it's fine. Like maybe the kind of people who use this product that they are already hosting servers and they don't really care as much, so it's not that big a deal. Or maybe they're like, yeah, we would definitely pay you if you just dealt with it, and we could just, you know, easily spin up new instances and all that stuff, and just pay you whatever, $10 a month each or whatever the right price is to manage it. So that might be kind of interesting way to get some more feedback there.
Yeah. I mean, that's easy to do. We have always an ongoing chat with our partners, like in Discord and monthly calls and stuff. So that's an easy thing for me to get a pulse on.
Does everyone pay the same license fee right now? The same cost?
Yes. Yep.
Have you
We have some
considered
options, like
changing
there's
that?
volume, and there's like, we have a platform subscription. So if you're building like lots of sites, we have an API, you can like spin up sites and stuff. And so like we can charge monthly instead of like the upfront $275. So we have like usage based. But yeah, I mean, changing the price, I'm very open to it. Like that was something I thought maybe we could get into a little bit, is like you were saying, where you draw the line on what's paid versus free or what's on each tier. We have that now. Like we had to choose what features were included and what were not in the core, and then everything else is pro, but it's 2 tiers. We could have a third, we could have an enterprise thing and have like all those enterprise features, but like I don't know that I necessarily want to get into that at the moment. But like the core version of Statamic comes with 1 admin user, and you get 1 form, and you don't get the automated Git automation. So like we have a control, like in the control panel, you can like commit changes and have it like auto commit and all that stuff, which you can script yourself. But those are the pro feature licenses, as well as revisions, unlimited, and multi-site. So multi-site is like unlimited users, unlimited like permissions and roles and all that, and multi-site. Right now, multi-site is just a feature. You can build as many sites as you want inside your 1 license. It's kind of not meant to be running. It's not like multi-tenant, right? So it's not like separate clients wouldn't use a single Statamic install. It's more like we have a Spanish and a French and a German version of this site, or we have, you know, I guess you could be like Procter and Gamble and be running like Tide and Dawn and Gain like websites, but they all kind of like pull all the same content. Like you could conceivably do that with multi-license. But like we could charge for multi-site like as a separate tier, or like per site. That is a thing that we could do. I feel like it would be, my gut says, like you were saying, would piss a lot of people off who are using it in like really small and simple ways. Like it's a D&D meetup group that's in German and English. You know, it's like it's a 4-page website. Like, and now I have to pay more.
I think one of the things you're hitting at the moment that I sense looking at your pricing page is the options that are presented to me as a new visitor, right, are free, which is for when you're building for yourself, a friend, or a hobby. So cool. That's the starter introduction. I get that. Sweet. But if I now want to use it seriously, it's $275. That's a big mental leap for me to make from like, I can try it for nothing, but then if I actually want to use it and deploy it on a site, $275. So where my mind's kind of going is there any way you could get that to a different pricing tier of, you can have a full production site for $29 a month per staff user, or for $29 a month per 100,000 visits, something where your pricing page says 0, 29. That's a much smaller mental jump for me to imagine. I can use this thing in production, but that's a starting price, right? Slack says $8 per user on their pricing page, but people in reality are paying thousands per month because you multiply whatever that thing is by the multiplier that is applied.
Yeah. Conceivably, yeah, the traffic would be tough because it's all self-hosted. And so we need to be collecting a lot of data like from everybody's site, which I don't love. But per seat,
it could be honor system. Like there's font,
Yeah.
all
Font
the
licensing.
web fonts are like you pay for
Yeah.
100,000 visits and you're just saying it's 100,000 visits or whatever. But
yeah.
it is always hard to by visit can be tricky.
Yeah. The free one now you can put in production, like you can run your site on that. We're changing that language. Like it is just feature locked. There's no usage type, like building it's only for you or your friends. It's like, no, if you want these features, it's free. If you want those features, it's pro. That's how I'm planning to change it. Yeah.
Kind of from what you've been talking about, this is separate from open source or not, but I feel like it would be interesting probably to experiment with just a different marketing approach, because like the current site is sort of like, like it's radical content management, like just going on the home screen, right? But
yeah,
like
it's terrible.
Then you kind of get into like, but it's like Laravel and it's flat files or database. Like basically it's really a developer platform, right? Like that is kind of the differentiator. It's like it's super developer oriented and powerful, which is different than like the other ones that are more like end user focused. Like I think of Ghost as like end user focused, or WordPress is like the users are like, this is a nice, clean, simple interface. That's the focus. Whereas like for you, maybe the focus should be like, this is hardcore. Like this is for building crazy shit and regular stuff too, right? But also it's like ultra powerful. If you're a dev, you can build out your clients' insane projects. We have all the tools. They all work well at scale, blah, blah. You can have all this underlying architecture decisions that you can make based on the scale you need and all that stuff. And then, it's like, then your end users get this nice, clean interface and it works really nice and so much easier. And here's all testimonials about how great they love it. But the sales pitch is to like the agencies that know how to build things and are like, this is the best way to build things when you have complicated things to build. Versus trying to like put together a million WordPress plugins or use some, Squarespace or some tool that's really meant for more straightforward applications. Like it could be interesting to be like the developers CMS or something like that, where that's more the angle as opposed to like the end user angle potentially.
Yeah, it's tricky because we do have a lot of different audiences that might come to that homepage. I am working on a total like redesign of our whole site. I'm pretty close, like within maybe a week or two of launching. I don't have the homepage locked because I'm still struggling with this same exact problem. Is like, who's coming to statamic.com? Well, for sure it's the developers, right? They're going there, they already know it, whatever, or they're evaluating it at agencies and business owners for sure. You're trying to see like, what is this? I heard about it. I got to look at it. But it's also agencies saying like, we want to pitch you rebuilding your site in Statamic. And you're like, well, what is it? I got to look it up. And so like you've got CTOs, CFOs, or whatever, these, business owners going to the site being like, what the hell's with this like deer on the homepage, right? And like, what is it? It's very like, because right now it is very developer focused. You can switch. There's like buttons you can say like, I'm a content manager, I'm a business owner, and it'll like switch the content. I don't think most people click those, and we randomly load one right now. So like you get a totally different version of the homepage. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And like, there's a couple people who wrote reviews about how cool it was, like of a great design. I'm like, oh, I guess I'll just leave it. I don't know that it's like the best way to have a homepage. Right. So redone it. It's now, I don't know. I mean, I can show it to you. I don't know if you care to see it or not, but like the point of it is like Statamic is the answer to your frustrating CMS problems. And we're really focusing on the user experience from all angles. And so like writers, developers, business owners, designers, and enterprise, and they each can go to their own different landing page from there. But then if you keep scrolling, it's like, here's the ecosystem, right? Here's the add-on and starter kit marketplace. It's built on Laravel, so you can drop it into current projects. We have partners. I have a partner network. We have community. We have good docs and some quotes, right? So it's like,
you said
more like
agencies are your bread and butter, right?
Agencies are our bread and butter. Yeah.
That's where I'd focus. I think I have the same problem with like number of different user types, and there's bloggers and newsletter senders and journalists and creators and companies doing marketing, same thing. But if agencies are clearly your bread and butter, have some place for the writers and the designers and those people to go. But I mean, I would double down hardcore on the agencies. Do you remember Flywheel? WP Engine acquired them, but Flywheel were WordPress hosting for designers. Come on, that is a niche, and it worked like hell because they attracted the designers of agencies, and then they attracted agencies, and that's how Flywheel kind of found its footing. Was just shrinking that target market to a niche, which is, everyone says is always easier said than done. But it sounds like you have a clear idea that agencies are like who have the skill to use Statamic, who have the budget to pay for Statamic, and who have the resources to deploy it, and who appreciate the craft that goes into what you've actually created.
Yeah, that is all true.
What's that tool that was like the opposite of that niched down to developers for WordPress? It's like Bedrock? Like, isn't there?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody?
I think Bedrock
Remember
sounds right.
Yeah,
Not
Bedrock
Genesis,
and maybe
Bedrock.
a family of like, but that was pretty huge because it's like WordPress, but with Composer and actually like nice ergonomics for hardcore developers. It's like actually like that's probably your target market, or if there was like a niche or a market to like extract from, it would be Bedrock. But
it looks like that is it. Bedrock. It's like basically adds in Composer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I used it once I became
fork
like a decent developer. It was like the WordPress ergonomics are trash, and it was like, oh, this is it. This is for me.
I think the reason why I'm hesitant to lean really hard into developers as the audience is because there's like there's a connotation that it's like a developer tool, right? But like it is.
Yeah, I actually don't think you should do that, just for the record. But I
okay,
draw
gotcha.
that
Give us your thoughts. Come on, Caleb.
Okay, I got a list of beliefs to share if you want, because I might have to leave in
1
second. Okay, here's like a laundry list of beliefs, because I was trying to frame it in all like, here's the big play, here's the small play. But I believe you should forget about open sourcing Statamic. Just forget about it. Maybe think about it later, whatever, and just focus on building.
Weight off my shoulders if I do that.
Yeah, just commit to it, like, and just then your life is easier. And just focus on building a bigger, healthier business, and then you can figure that out later if you want. Because that's like the real problem is like you want to be bigger as a business. The other next thing, you should forget about hosting. You don't want to do it. You know in your heart of hearts, like it's not in the cards for you right now, and be like out of your comfort zone. I just don't think you should focus on it because I don't think you want to, like you said. And yeah, so second belief, I'm pissing Adam off.
Adam had to run, so he has a lawyer.
That's belief number 2. Just to make your life easier, I'm giving you definitive things that you can take away. No open source, no hosting. And you shouldn't bank on, like, as you know, like getting market from WordPress for all the reasons. Like my quick business analog is like my Make VS Code Awesome course. I was like, should I niche this down to make VS Code Awesome for Laravel developers? No, I want to capture like all developers. Think about the market size of VS Code, and then it'll catch on and other ecosystems, whatever. And it just never did. It still doesn't. And it's all like all the people who buy it are Laravel devs, and it doesn't even think I don't think it says Laravel in the homepage at all. So anyway, it's like one of those things that like it should work, but it probably won't. And so I kind of have a similar feeling that like I wouldn't bank on capturing the WordPress market, but better content marketing, I think you should do anyway, because it plays to your strengths as a content marketer. You're great at video and communication and design. And I think you could take this opportunity, like it's in the air, there's more searches going on. So just start like, not saying WordPress is bad, but Statamic is great, and do like YouTube shorts and stuff in the way that you do, like just beef up content marketing in general. I also think you should drop static entirely and embrace SQLite. I think static was like a trend and something that people cared about at one point. And I don't think even developers don't care about it. And it might even make it feel stale. I just want a single SQLite file. I think you should just do that. You don't have to change the name. People don't even like.
We already can do that. We let you choose.
Right. I think you shouldn't even market that we let you choose. Personally.
Yeah. But the reason why I built it is because I wanted flat file.
Right. Abandon it. These are my beliefs.
I love Caleb. Caleb shows up and just throwing haymakers at the end. He's like, haymakers.
Yeah.
I love it.
That would make my team probably really happy, because it's hard. The flat file thing is hard, and there's a lot of work.
It's hard as a user too. I've built Statamic sites, and just give me a SQLite file. I would love it. So, okay, take it or leave it. Belief. Another belief. Statamic should be easier, shouldn't bounce atom out, less friction, more clicking, more like, this is the thing. I think if you focus away from it, from developer likeness, developers will like it more anyway, because you already have that stuff taken care of. So like, I should be able to just like click around, get a site up and running with a good default theme. You upsell me on your really awesome themes, but it feels like so easy to use. The reason I don't use Statamic anymore, well, because I don't do a lot of that type of stuff, but it's like, I have to fork my developer knowledge. Like there's a lot I need to know even to like upgrade this thing or manipulate a template, and it kind of pushes me in that direction by default. Like I need to use the command line and then I forget how to use the command line, whatever. So I think you should make it just easier to use, and then developers will love it more too. And then focus on your templates. I think that should be like the next big revenue stream to focus on. And in parallel, experiment with your pricing so that like, John was saying, like, and Ian, that you can capture, bigger customers and you can capture smaller customers. Just kind of widen the gradient and experiment with it and see if revenue goes up. Okay. And then my final question, that because this isn't an answer, is do you double down on Laravel? This is either a strong yes or a strong no. But if Statamic uses Blade for templating, well, that's a giant, huge thing I don't have to think about now. It's like, oh, I already know Blade. Because it's right in this middle awkward place where it's like Laravel, but you talk to a lot of people, they don't know about it in Laravel, or they don't know that it is actually Laravel specific at all. So you could make it hyper Laravel. Now it's the Laravel CMS. You don't want to do hosting? Perfect. Laravel does want to do hosting. So now it's like deeply intertwined and there's some business deal there or whatever with Laravel Cloud, and you kind of ride that wave. But it also means like there's other ecosystems and people who don't want to like, oh, I don't want a Laravel thing. They don't identify as Laravel devs who would otherwise embrace your technology as an independent thing. Maybe won't embrace it because it's the CMS for it's October. It's not, this is right now it is positioned as an independent thing, and I don't know which is the right option. So that's a question, but there's my pitch.
I also have that question. I love that. Some of that is very freeing. As far as what is right for the product and what's right for our users, like
I don't know if any of it's right.
I don't know. I don't know if it's right or not.
Nobody knows.
I think it's spicy, and I like that about it. There's a lot of advantages if we were to purge the flat file feature, but then it's a different platform.
Purge it.
It's one that I wouldn't use. So now I'm working on a product that I won't use myself.
But those are two different things, right? There's purging it from the marketing, and there's actually purging it. Like, I don't think you should actually purge it because you have like thousands of customers using it, and that would be bad.
That's
like it still needs to do it, right? But like, because you don't want to deal with that.
Not necessarily a major version bump, though. You can
you
get rid
could
of these things,
maybe potentially.
You could just keep it all totally, like
I would
bury it in the marketing.
It working, but yes, it's like a thing
I am
that's
burying
not
it in the marketing.
on.
That's happening.
Yeah,
it's no longer flat file CMS, flat first CMS. Like I'm done with the customer education thing. It's now it's a user experience focused CMS. Is kind
of
like
ideally SQLite as a default, and you should promote it that way. Rails World, the keynote was basically a pitch for SQLite. All Rails apps are going like SQLite, and you ask like Adam and Taylor what they thought was the coolest thing in that keynote. It's the SQLite stuff. So did I. Aaron is pushing SQLite. Like, it is perfect for something like this because it's in a bottle. It's like I don't have to have all this sprawl and developer setup. It's like this is a CMS in a bottle. It's right here. You take your whole database, copy it, bounce it, back it up, whatever.
Pushing hard. I see that. My counter argument to the flat file thing is like, for content driven websites, it's really nice to be able to write your blog posts in VS Code, because you can just pop open. It's like content folder, blog subfolder, create a new file. Boom. You can write it right there. You can project find and
My little pushback on that was like when I was messing around with Statamic, it's like those files are sort of insane. Like there was like tons of
if
stuff.
You're using Bard, they get ridiculous. So
there's like a lot of stuff for the custom fields or whatever. It's not like, oh, it's just a markdown file and it sits there. It's like for a real website, right? I'm sure you could just run a pure blog and it would just be a markdown file with some head matter stuff, whatever, and it would be very straightforward.
Even
But
that
it's,
though, I don't
like,
want to do
there was
that. I
all
have to
kinds
do
of
that
stuff in that. I do
for
hate
my
head
own
matter,
blog.
but
I have to do it for all my
yeah.
doc sites, and I
Right.
hate it. Shout out to John when I used Ghost for my blog forever ago, and it's like such a crisp little editor. And Statamic, you have that too. It's not like you don't. You know.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. I actually don't want to write markdown files. I'll use Obsidian to write my markdown files because I just want like a heading to look like a heading. I don't have to write like tick, 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 HTML space, whatever. I don't know. These are opinions.
Yeah.
They're opinions.
I agree with all of Caleb's opinions and his pitch. I think it's
There you
very
go.
strong. With one
Great.
exception. One exception.
One exception.
Yes,
all right.
good, because I wouldn't believe you.
Do not do themes first. Don't do
Mm.
big premium templates first, because you want everything else is about growing your market, getting more people to use Statamic, right? The last thing you want to do is spend 6 months building templates for a small market. Grow the market first, then create templates for them. I don't think there's a large number of people who are not going to use Statamic today because of the templates you already have. It's not like there's a big deficiency there. I think that's a second order opportunity. And the thing I would add to what Caleb said is the number one thing I'd prioritize is the pricing. Find a way to make your pricing page say $9 a month, because that's what Framer's website says. That's what Webflow's website says. That's what Ghost's website says. That's what Squarespace's website says.
We could charge $9 a month today if we wanted to just switch it to a monthly pricing instead of like the upfront license.
I would test that today and just see how it performs.
Or can you do even like some foo and just be like charged yearly or like charged monthly, but like yearly price or something? I don't know. Is there some way to like not do any work and change it to say $9 a month? Is that possible?
The one implication that changes when you go to monthly pricing.
I gotta bounce. Sorry, guys.
Dude, thank you for your portion. I appreciate you, Caleb.
Good luck, Jack. See it.
The implication that changes when you go to monthly pricing is now you're renting software. Because if right now, because you buy the license up front, $275, in my book, that's $7, that's $750 a month times 3. So like most sites last maybe 3 years before the redesign. So it's like paying $750 a month for 3 years, except you can run it forever. If you never update it, or if you build a site for a client and it's a local restaurant or mom and pop shop or whatever, and they might run it for 5-10 years and never touch it, right? So
you can tie that to updates though, right? Like Mac apps, 1Password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get updates up to the next major version, and then no more updates. Or yearly, like WooCommerce add-ons, you pay for them. They're GPL licensed and open source, but you're paying for updates. So you pay a yearly license of $60 or something. If you don't renew, all the code keeps working. You're all good, but no more updates, like no more new features, no more maintenance, whatever. They still do security patches, of course, because they're going to be good stewards of their software. But you can tie that to updates easily enough so people can use it forever, but not necessarily get new stuff.
Yeah, I moved. So HelpSpot is on premise, and we did move to fully subscription like 10 years ago. Although we did back, whatever. Existing customers didn't have to move to subscription, so we still have customers who have own licenses and they pay for annual support and updates. So I do think moving to subscription is I think it's a really big thing. Like that's going to have a lot of implications. So you would have to definitely think through all those implications. In this kind of app, especially. But I think even short of that, I definitely agree with John saying before, like the pricing page, I don't love. Like the $7 a month is weird. Like what's the $7 a month thing? But then there's $275 and free. And like, I feel like you could even just have different price. I feel like you could have free, right? And you could have like $99 for some like lesser amount of features, but you get something for that. I don't know what it is. $275 and $9.99. Like, have the enterprise one that's like $9.99 or whatever that gives you some other stuff. Make $275 seem cheaper, right? Like $275 is still the real one you want to sell, but make it seem cheaper with some more price anchoring. Like right now, it's like $275 is the most expensive thing because something is $7 a month. I don't understand what it is. The other thing is free, and $275 is the expensive one. So I feel like you just even like some standard marketing whiz-bangy stuff would probably just help the pricing in general, but I think you could have a yearly maintenance fee too. Like even if you didn't want to go full subscription, which is like what John is saying, right? Like it's not a subscription in the pure sense where like it stops working. You still own it, and it runs forever, so you don't have to worry about that. But
what if you only pay for 1 month? What happens?
I mean, you actually do have that. It's $65 a year for updates.
Correct.
What do we have? If what?
If you launch a Statamic Pro site, you pay for 1 month, and you're like, I don't ever want an update. Now we just got $9.
Yeah, no, I don't think you should. I don't know. I think that you should only do monthly if you're doing subscription. If you're not doing like a pure subscription,
yeah. So when
then
you stop paying it, like you lose Pro, right?
Right.
Yeah, that would be like how
so
you use
that would be the pure subscription. But I think even if you just kept what you had now, but it's like anchored to 275 better. I think 65 a year is probably not enough. I mean, I would raise that. Like I used to charge a third, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you could up that to 99 or something like that. And yeah, that kind, I mean, it gets you a lot of what a subscription gives you without it, the overhead of that. You know, it's harder to get people to buy a subscription, especially since you're not doing the hosting where it's like a more obvious connected thing of like, yeah, I'm paying for this every month because it comes with the hosting and that's what I'm getting, this hosted thing.
Right.
It,
yeah,
you know,
if we
I
did
do think
hosting,
there
we
is a
would just
difference
roll
there.
the license into the monthly fee, like licenses included, you know,
Yeah.
and if hosted got, you know, made 5x or 10x like the licenses, we would just get rid of the licenses.
Right. You're just paying for the hosting. Like that's what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
You
I mean, I do
build
think
kind of
people
that
are
ghost model.
more comfortable paying for subscriptions now. I mean, we have a pure subscription now, and it's like, you know, if you stop paying for HelpSpot, it stops working. And you know, but it is a little bit different kind of thing. Like if you stop paying for HelpSpot, it's because you're using a different tool for your help. You didn't get rid of your help desk. You're using a different tool. And so, whereas the website is a little bit, it's a little bit different, right? Like it's not a pure
B2B if your credit card
app.
bounces, your site shouldn't go down, right? Because
right,
just,
stuff like that.
Liability
So
I don't want to have.
Right. So there's some stuff there. But I think you could get a lot of those ideas in here without the full-on commitment of that and increase sales and increase revenue just with some of those optimizations.
I feel like you can combine these two as well. Rename the 275 to lifetime. Add a $9 a month monthly option where the license is good for as long as the subscription is active.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Cancel the license.
Okay. That's interesting.
That's pretty similar to Flux, no? Isn't that what Caleb did with Flux? And it's definitely what Peter
he
does
ended
with
up switching off
Nomadless.
that. That's what he was going to do, but he didn't actually do it. Yeah, he has it lifetime now. But yeah, for people that would make it easier for people to dip their toe in, right? Because then you could always move to lifetime later or something like that.
Yeah. The lifetime would still need the annual renewal though for it to work. But
yeah, so you probably name it a little bit differently or whatever. But yeah, if you want it monthly or owned, something.
Your challenge is to lower the barrier of people coming in. Like you can protect against how do I make more money off the people at the top later. But if you're, sounds from all our conversation, sounds like your goal is to get more people using Statamic to grow the Statamic pie. I think a lower entry price point is going to get you, even if you want to do the open source thing one day, it's going to bring you close to that if you can get more people using Statamic overall. And it'll probably also solidify, the size of the market you're operating in, which will then give you more room to maneuver. But other than that, everything Caleb said, I thought was...
Caleb, he's just a silent assassin, just like sitting there in the
notes.
weeds, taking notes.
Yeah. I was like, is he reading a book? What's he doing? No, he's writing notes so he can get out of here. Like,
he's gonna blow your mind as he steps out the door.
Yeah, kudos.
Yeah, I don't know. So what else you got there, man? Any other topics here before we wrap?
Yeah, let me see if I can. My iPad stopped letting me switch pages.
In, 4 minutes.
Okay, well maybe we should just wrap it up then.
I got all day, man. We could do anything. I can hang out here all day. We'll stream and have lunch.
Let's see. We talked about the business model. We talked about audience. We didn't really talk about enterprise. We don't really need to. We talked about flat file, how y'all hate it and I still love it. What about the name? What do you think about the name Statamic?
I hate names you can't pronounce, so I don't like that. But I also think I don't know if I'd change it because that seems
it's so late in the game to change the name.
Yeah,
like it's one thing for ConvertKit to switch to Kit, right? You're like it's already part of the name. We can't drop any Statamic.
I think
they also just have
by the way.
They just also have a lot of money to make it happen, right? Like, it's like they could just shove it in your face on ads everywhere for months and months, and like everybody's gonna get it. Like, you probably can't do that, right? So I think that's a little harder. I think I don't know. I probably wouldn't.
They're about to learn the hard way how difficult SEO attribution becomes when your brand is a generic word. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Yeah. I do love that domain and everything, but I think it is gonna be hard for them. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now everyone has to say, I use Kit, the email platform. Never had that
Right.
problem before. It now
Yeah.
requires a qualifier. I don't think it's I
Yeah.
don't think it's a strong move. No, Statamic's a good brand. Keep it. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
That one works.
I'm with that.
Enterprise, unless you are passionate about sales, compliance, process, and negotiation, I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. I would try
I don't know. I have a different take. I think
Go on.
it's not, we deal with a lot of enterprise sales and we're small, and yeah, sometimes you get some that are just too much and it's like a big pain. But then, but on the other side, it's like when one customer pays you $35,000 and you're like, boy, that's like a whole bunch of other customers I would have had to get that. It's pretty awesome. So I think not, your thing's not maybe quite like that, right? But I think having like a tier you call enterprise that gives you some of those, like maybe that's where you get flat file for horizontal scaling, or like whatever. Is there really enterprisey things like horizontal scaling to me
horizontally,
is what's that?
Flat file doesn't scale horizontally.
Okay, so
No,
whatever
have
you
to
were
go
gonna
to a
do,
database. Yeah.
whatever, if you could come up with like, here's the things that make it work behind a proxy or reverse proxying or whatever enterprisey type things that you really have a big project you're running on this thing, right? Like it's clear you are not just running a little website. You have a whole front end server architecture and a database with failover and whatever. You come up with those scenarios. I think having a higher tier that 15% of your customers now pay $9.99 a site instead of $275, like that alone, that's huge. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. If you could get another tier in there. So I don't know. I think that there's something to that. Yeah, you probably can't do what a Squarespace might. I'm sure they have a whole enterprise sales team and they'll jump through whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
groups, right?
the
whatever,
way we would do enterprise wouldn't be like traditional enterprise, like the way you think about it, but being able to service like newsroom style companies, like and be able to support them. Enterprise is like the word that would catch the eye, but it isn't like it. I don't know that we want to do like SOC 2 compliance. Like we don't have their infrastructure.
Well, you wouldn't have to because you're not hosting it, so you're fine. Yeah.
Yes. But in terms of like SLA being like have PR escalation, be able to like work like chat and video chat with the team and like have access to us. Like I probably wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the couple of enterprisey clients or customers that we've had, like Spiegel and TV2. Like over the last year, TV2 has opened 160 PRs that are like high performance, high scaling stuff. 160 PRs. They have like two full-time devs, like essentially just building features for.
They're not paying
like
you
high
enough.
performance.
I guarantee you that. Whatever they're paying you,
they're also paying a fair bit. But but we're when they say like this PR is like critical for us, we're like. Then that's what we're going to work on today. Like,
so like that's enterprise. That is enterprise. You're already doing it.
That's how we do enterprise, right? But we don't market it.
No, but that's what the problem is right there. Now you put your finger on the problem is you need to market it, because there's probably other newsrooms out there that are like would want this, and other organizations, and some people will just buy the enterprise version because they're a big company and they're like, we'll get the enterprise version, and in case we ever need these things, we have them already, and I got the budget. The enterprise people think differently. I have to go get approval for this. I only want to go once, and I'm just going to go do it.
Right.
And I'm just going to buy the enterprise version now. And that's what I'm going to do. So that's the way
I think I need to answer that story, because there's money just like waiting on that table. I don't want to say which, but there's a couple of countries in that use Statamic for like most of their sites. And like, they don't buy licenses because it's too cheap. They're like, whenever you launch like an enterprise thing, we'll just buy that.
Yes.
They just hack it. They just hack it. And you're like, and they tell me.
I got to jump.
All right,
John, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
This was good. I really appreciate it.
I believe in you. It sounds like you might be good at enterprise. If so, keep doing it. No amount of money could make me do it ever. But if you've already got a channel and it's working, then
when you have a bunch of those $9 a month people just paying you forever, 29, I don't know what ghost pricing is, but that is a beautiful model. But
All right,
thanks, John. You got to go. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'd go into the enterprise heavy. I think for size companies like ours, it's actually like there's so much other like the meta is not that, right? It's like charge everybody $29 or $99, and that's the meta. But I don't know. I feel like you're able to do things that are unique. you're able to like work with a customer more directly, right? Because you're small, like that's an advantage, and it can be an advantage for the enterprise customers. And so, and also a lot of times once you get them rolling, then you just never hear from them. Like these guys are doing 160 PRs a month. They're just doing that. They're not calling you every time, right? Like they're doing a bunch of work. And once in a while they're asking you. Yeah. But like once in a while they're coming to you. Yeah. But like, fine, then you merge it, right? Or whatever. Like it's not, I just think the enterprise, since you're already having success there, especially you should be doing more with it. I think you need an enterprise tier. Whether or not you have extra support, to me, that's even like a separate thing. I think there needs to be just a pure enterprise tier that just doesn't commit you to any extra support, or at least not majorly, right? Like maybe that gets you phone support and everybody else is just email. I don't even know if you have phone support now or not, but like whatever, officially, right? So like, so maybe that's a huge, you could literally just have that. You could have like middle tiers email support, enterprise tiers phone support. Like literally you could basically just do that. I would put some other stuff in there. But and then you could have support licenses that are a separate conversation. That's a really enterprise plus type thing. But I think you should lean into that, especially with what Statamic is, where it's like lets people do a lot of this higher leverage, developer focused things. I feel like it makes a ton of sense to have an enterprise option there. So
I think I need to, like at Flat Camp this year, which I don't know if you're familiar with our.
I mean, I know what it is. I've never been. I want to go.
You should go. Yeah, it's in the. Cool. I'm working on next year's. It should be in North America somewhere next year. We'll talk. But yeah, so at Flat Camp, the topic of enterprise came up, and so we have like 50 people. We're all hanging out in the big room, just chatting. Like, hey, let's ask anything. What do you want? What's your dream for Statamic? What would make your life better? What would make you be able to close deals? And enterprise came up, and I'm like, yeah, I hear about it, like onesie twosies, but I don't know if there's enough people. Like, I don't want to alienate our current customer base because I'm chasing enterprise, and we're going to change everything. I don't want that to happen. But I said, raise your hand if you're interested in enterprisey things. Like 60% of the room all of a sudden they were, because they're trying to land big customers.
Yes.
Like they're, like university or whatever. Right. And that we don't have the answer to that is like, they need to have that agreement in order to use the company.
A nice differentiator from the WordPresses and all these other, that's kind of like what I was getting at before. Like this ultra simple, like it's super simple for your end users, even if that's not really true, right? Like that's like what their kind of gig is. And so many CMSs is like, we're the ultra simple, nice to use, which you should be that too, right? But at the same time, yes, people are just coming there and being like, well, is this a real thing? Can I trust it? Obviously, you don't have the brand recognition of a WordPress. So yeah, just even having that enterprise aspect is going to get you other sales. And I think it would be huge, like having that. It's like even on ours, we don't have an enterprise tier, but we have our equivalent is that like we have customers when testimonials and things who have like 200 users and 500 users and 100 users. And so if you have a help desk with 250 users and using HelpSpot, well, that implies like a certain amount of scalability and reliability and all those things.
But should you have a tier because you have those customers?
I probably should have. I mean, we've gone down this path multiple times. Yes. So we probably should have an enterprise tier. But our version is just the sort of bigger sales at higher volumes and things. And so, but yeah, I mean, it could even be $19.99 for you. Like, I feel like you could have a $275 as the regular one, free $275, $19.99. Like, I really like that. I think that would be awesome. $9.99 is not even big enough.
$1,999, not $19.99.
No,
like made for
$1,999. Like, assuming you keep the rest, whatever, you can get into monthly and all that stuff. But if you don't want to change all that stuff, and it's like, let's just sell licenses like we do now. And it's like, there's an enterprise one that's $2,000 a year. It's $1,000 a year in support, for the year updates and things. And then you have this optional support contract. You get phone support now, 9 to 5, but we could do video. We could do more hours.
Do you think it's important that tier, if we were to do that, gets a different version of the product or gets some features, or is it literally
I think it would be nice. I think that would be better, but I don't think I don't even think it's required necessarily, but I think there's got to be one or two things you could draw out.
There are things that are generally required for enterprise. If you're like proper enterprise, like if you go to enterpriseready.io or whatever it is, it's like two-factor authentication or multi-factor passkeys.
Yeah, I would have that.
Right. So like
Which is
we don't
tricky
have
in
that in core
some ways, but
because there's add-ons that do it, and we try not to Sherlock people's paid products, but like at some point
You
certain
gotta
things do need
Sherlock
to be
them.
core.
Yeah.
That one needs to be Sherlock.
Or buy them, right? Be like, listen,
I've
I'm going
talked
to
about that
Sherlock
too.
this, or I'm going to buy it off you. But one way or the other, like this, people are asking for this, and it's too big to leave to like a plugin. Like
exactly. The other is like audit logging, like where every
Yep.
change, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And
I would do
there's
that.
someone's working on that we'd be able to like partner, and like they're building a tool and something we like tap in and use ourselves or whatever. It's like as an add-on. Maybe just bring that in or include
Yeah,
that.
I'd bring that in. Like
Yeah.
that's an obvious one too. And then you could do other stuff as you go. I mean, you could even have it like be like if you're using this on more than X front end servers, that just means you need an enterprise license. Like if you are on more than 2, like if you're running 10 front end servers, like that's not a normal setup, right? So I think you could have some stuff like that. So that's kind of getting at the volume without it being like, oh, if you're over 1 million visits a month, like that, right? That starts to get weird and complicated. But if you have more than 2 front end servers or not, what I mean? That's like you're at different scales there.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
once
you go with like more than just a single load balancer, like, you're talking about a totally different type of customer.
So I think that could be one of the things you could probably add in. You could grandfather in the existing people, whatever, who cares? It's only for like this date forward. New customers this date forward or whatever. And here's the thing, this would be a good game for you to play. Call Automatic, call WP Engine, and find out what their enterprise plan is, because it's going to be more zeros on it than what we're talking about for sure, right?
For sure, yeah.
They're going to be 50,000, 100,000, a million. I'm sure there are people paying them in the millions for certain big sites. So like, 2,000 is nothing, right? If you're talking about this kind of customer, it's like you said, with the country that's like, this is too cheap, we're not even going to bother paying for it because this is not a serious thing, essentially, is what they're saying to you, right? Like this is not serious.
For them, it had to be at least $20,000 for it to count.
Right. Exactly. So so like, there's those people out there.
Figure this out.
Right. So
that's significant. Yeah. Another thing that I've thought about is having like a monthly service, like have a little mini SaaS that, or something you would enable, like monthly fee that would do like a presence either real-time collaboration or like real-time field locking, where you can see like who's editing the current like entries and stuff. So you prevent people from overwriting each other's work. And that's something, because you got to have like live WebSockets in order to do that. And so we have it now. It's called Collaboration. It's a free add-on, and you have to set up your own reverb or echo or pusher service, and it like locks the entry. But like we could take it to the next level, and you need to have that like WebSocket server in order to like hold presence between.
I totally disagree with you on that, but in theory, I mean, we do it in HelpSpot. We don't have any of that. Like, I think you could just have Livewire and polling, and I mean, these people aren't like. A help desk ticket has a lot of like, boy, we're both in there at the same point. Like 2 page posts, if you have 1 second delay where there might be overlapping, I think it's minor, and you're going to be like, okay, somebody's editing this. Like,
well,
not a big deal.
There's that. We have a lot more complicated field types than like a text field, right? You have like.
Do you mean actually collaboratively editing the same doc? Like you want them to be purposefully editing the same document, or just warning that somebody else is editing it?
We have had people who wanted to do that, and we were working with Spiegel to actually, like, they were kind of building it, we were supporting them and going down that like full on multi, and you could see like the flags and like
that would be something different. Of course, you would want the WebSockets for that. Yeah, exactly.
Pretty sick. Multiple cursors inside the same field, and it was working. But it just required another level of like infrastructure that we decided we weren't going to cross that bridge at the time. I think there is definitely room for that to be a good feature. We're kind of getting in the weeds, but another part of that is like something that does happen. Say you're a news company and you've got journalists writing articles. Someone grabs their laptop, hops on the train, finishes writing the article. Someone else is back at the newsroom editing. Then they like log in. They get reconnected to the internet and hit save, and it stops over what the first person did. Right. So like, there's some things you could do on our server side, and there's other things that need like a third like a presence server to actually detect incoming changes and stuff like that. So like there's some of those kind of features, like newsroomy style features that could be really interesting. That could be, we could charge for them differently.
We're doing a service like that too for HelpSpot, where like, because like for the AI stuff, like we have it where you just use your own key now, but it's kind of annoying and whatever. And AI cost is coming down so much that we're just gonna like run it and kind of include it and increase the price of the base product, but then like probably just be in there for free basically. But yeah, it's like without having to make people go sign up for OpenAI and get a key and do a thing and whatever. Like it's just like, no, it just comes with HelpSpot, and we just like have our own little authenticated little mini SaaS thing, and you can use it on premise or cloud or whatever. So that's cool. These like hybrid things make sense, and that should definitely, in your case, yeah, I mean that's like totally right. That should only be in the enterprise version, I would think. So especially if you keep the enterprise version not crazy expensive, it's like, yeah, it's $2,000 or whatever it is. It's not $100,000. It's, you know, it's like a pretty reasonable amount. If you have a service with it, I mean, then you could charge annually. It's like, so, or that maybe the annual price is 2,000, like it's just 2,000 a year, even for the even if it keeps working, like, and you stop paying, it's like, well, the service stops, so you don't get the collaboration and you don't get updates, whatever. You know, there's still ways to do it where it's not a pure subscription and they still own it and their site doesn't go down and all that stuff. Even if the yearly maintenance is the same cost as the annual fee or whatever, like that kind of thing. So I think this enterprise thing is like, this is really the thing you need to be hammering on.
Like I expected, everyone has different opinions, but it's good to get outside perspective on the importance of each one. There was one other aspect that
we didn't even talk about this, but the other, I mean, if you wanted to do the compete with WordPress thing, I mean, you could also always go like the VC route, you know, and like raise some money, build a team, like all that stuff. But yeah, it's like, do you want to do that?
I don't want to do that. No, because then you're beholden to an exit, and once you're beholden to an exit, all of your decisions at some point on the calendar have to switch into prepping for the exit, and then you're no longer focused on the product. So I don't. I could see some sort of partnership, high level sponsor thing working out, but like actual VC where they're trying to get their money back, I don't see that. I don't see that working very well. There may be an exception, could be like if Laravel wanted to buy it, there may be nuance there because of the community ecosystem. But like, again, there's, I don't know, hypotheticals, right? But like that scares me so much more than open sourcing it in terms of like what would happen to the community and people who rely on it, because at some point you're actually giving up the person who cares the most about the product to people who care the most about the money. And that's, I've never been in it for the money of it all. I've been in it to make a really cool product that I enjoy working on, that I would use myself, that makes enough money that I don't have to do something else. And we are there. We're there. It's a lifestyle company. We all can take a good amount of time off. Like, you know, every team's happy. Like, that is good. There's not much extra to go around. Like, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's why I think, I like the idea of, I don't know, I think we got some good stuff here. I think enterprise is like nice, easy way to add more revenue. I think, does you have some like table stakes kind of things that you're working on already, like with the new website and improved pricing page, I think in general and stuff that might just help, you know, you get 25% lift or 15% lift right there. If you nail that, right, that's a huge difference right there. So
for sure. One thought I've had, and maybe my math mind isn't calibrated to this type of question. Maybe if we want to wrap up soon, because it's, you know, we can do that. This is or this last question, whatever. If we were to transition pricing from, let's just say, from $275 upfront and then $65 a year. What if we went to just say like $99 a year or like $129 a year? The way the cash flow would work out, as soon as you switch that, we're used to getting new projects bring in about $300, right? Because it's like $275 plus usually an add-on or something. To all of a sudden, new projects bring in $100 or $150. So like we just cut our cash flow in half or in third, in by a third, and that then immediately that transition would go from cash flow positive to drastic cash flow negative. If, you know, there's the annual renewals, which would buffer the bottom and the partner fees and stuff, but like the revenue from the main licensing would like, I now have like a 3-year like actualization on that. That's the wrong word. Monetization, amortization. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I think yes and no, right? Like, I mean, obviously the whole point of lowering it to 99 would be, do you make it up in volume, right? And so I think the interesting thing that would make it easier for you to experiment with that is that since you're not a subscription, like normally in most software businesses these days, like if you wanted to experiment with that, you basically have to cut all your existing revenue too, right? Because like, oh, everybody's paying me $275 a year. Now I have to give it to all of them for $99 a year, right? And you don't really have that. So you could do this for like a month or two and be like,
yeah, but then the refund requests come in. All right, so I just bought the $275 license.
Yeah.
Now can I get a refund? And so
there's only so many people that are going to be aware of that. And also, I don't think you have any responsibility there. That's where you're going to have to be a little Gordon Gekko ruthless here and be like, it was $275 when you bought it. It's $99 now. We're running an experiment. If you bought it yesterday, if you bought it last week, fine. I mean, how many? That's not going to be that many, right? Whatever it is in a reasonable time frame, fine. But if you bought it 3 months ago or 6 months ago, right? No, you're not getting a refund. Like this is what it costs now. We're trying some different things. You're gonna get like 4 of those. Like who's gonna even know? Like people aren't gonna know. You know, like
maybe. I'm afraid that it's like going to be
the agencies are a little different, but I kind of doubt that you. I just feel like if you had that many people, I just think people aren't probably that price sensitive. The people that you're actually already hold of, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, people who just want free. There's so many free options. You're not getting any of them, whether it's 99 or 275. What's the difference? Like they're not buying anything, right? So then, so now you're really just targeting this market that's like, that's not price sensitive, but sort of is a little bit, and like. I don't know. Like, there's probably some optimal amount. Like, maybe it's 189 is the perfect fit, but I kind of doubt going all the way to 99 is. I just don't think you're going to triple sales when you go all the way to 99. I don't think there's that much price sensitivity between 99 and 275. I think it's between 0 and anything. And so if you're not going to 0, you're already kind of in who cares territory a little bit. Like you could maybe the experiment's the other way. Like, what if you went to 499? And you know, if you have like Enterprise is 2000, regulars 499, and maybe I'm sure you'll lose some sales, but maybe you don't lose 40%, and now you're ahead.
I mean, with a move like that, we could make the free version slightly better. We could let you have 2 users or something. So like those, I don't know. No,
don't do that.
You're so ruthless.
I don't think so. I mean, what's the free version do for you? I mean, has it been good? Like, we didn't really talk about that. Like, has the free version been good? Does it
I think so. It's kind of hard to quantify because it's free. So, but since we've had it, like we were pretty flatlined for like 5, 6, 7 years where it just barely did a little bit better. And then we open sourced the repo. We rebuilt on Laravel. We went full time on it, and it just, that's when things started to go up. With the mirror, I don't know which way am I don't know. You get it. So
it could be interesting to look into how many people had free and moved to paid. That would be what you really want, right? Like they started with the free and then they bought a paid at some point. Like, I don't know if you can.
I don't know. I don't know how to collect that because the free is just Composer install. So like,
it's just totally
that number
isolated.
is in the same pool as Composer update people, right?
Does it call back with URLs or anything like that?
Yeah, when we ping home,
analytics?
it pinged home.
Okay, so you should be able to do it.
I don't remember if we collected on the free one or not though, because we don't have like an implicit contract with you. We probably should add that if we don't. Yeah.
At least collecting the like what this domain is loaded on, because if you just know the domain it's loaded on, then you could it'll be imprecise, but who cares? Like you could match up, okay, like this domain ended up moving to paid, and you can know that some percentage, whatever it is, it's going to be a small percentage, but eventually 0.05% of people move to paid or whatever, and then you could try to move that up or down or play with it a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't played around with the data that much because I feel like it's not that actionable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But then if you play around and make the free tier better, you might be hurting yourself and you won't even know.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. In which case there's something actionable that it could give me. So that's good.
Yeah. And also like you don't even, it's sort of hard to tell right now, it sounds like, because like, it went free and it started to go up, but also you started working on it full time, and you
Yeah,
got
there's
more
like so
hooked
many
into
things that happened
Laravel,
all at
right?
once.
So like who knows
Yeah.
what's impacting what? It might be the free version, but it might just be that you're actually working on it full time and doing a lot of releases and talking about it more, and like all that stuff that comes with being able to work on it full time. So
Yeah, I mean they're all a factor of it too, right?
Yeah.
It's just how much come from any one thing. It's hard to say like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you lost 50 pounds. What did you do? Well, I started eating well, and I started sleeping more, and I went to the
Right.
gym, and I sat less. And you're like, yeah, you changed your
Right.
lifestyle, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if you took one of them out, you'd still have made progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, you got a lot of homework here. I don't know.
I
A lot
know.
to do.
I know.
Hopefully it was useful.
Yeah.
I think this is cool. We've never done
That
in
was
this
a good-
this big a group, so I think it worked out pretty good. Nobody really talked over each other. We kind of made it work.
Yeah, everyone had some good insight to say, and I really appreciate everybody like jumping in. I think it was an interesting time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Well.
Anything else you want to pitch or talk about, or anything before we wrap?
No, I mean I feel like I've received enough. I don't need to go pitch other stuff. That's
We're in
fine.
full business to add on it. All right,
did,
man.
yeah.
Well, thanks for coming
Yeah.
on. Thanks for doing the show.
Awesome.
And
Thanks for having
putting
me.
that tweet out there. And thanks everybody for listening. Those of you who made it, another 2-hour guest stream 2 weeks in a row here. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody, and hopefully Aaron's back next week. And
Yeah, get better,
see you
Aaron.
later. Get better, Aaron.
Dude.
All right. Talk to you guys
All right.
later. Bye.
Cheers.